Okay.
Welcome. The April 7th meeting of the Thousand Oaks Council on Aging is called to order. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
stands,
One
nation,
under
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now have the roll taken by Staff Liaison Francine Spriegel.
Please say here present when I call your name. Chair Guerra.
Here.
Vice Chair Belding.
Here.
Commissioner Burt.
Present.
Commissioner Blue.
Present.
Commissioner Janelle.
Here.
Commissioner Lowndes.
Present.
Commissioner Posta.
Here.
Commissioner Sylvester.
Here.
And Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Thank you.
Item 4 on our agenda is public comments. This is a time in our meeting when we invite members of the public to state their concerns about senior-related issues in our city or to present items for commission consideration. Speakers have 3 minutes. You'll be asked to state your name and the city in which you reside. I believe we have one public comment. If you would like to go ahead and begin.
Commissioner Guerra and all commissioners present today, thank you for letting me be with you today. My name is Susan Soy, and I am a resident of Thousand Oaks, and I'm here today during National Volunteer Appreciation Month to first offer my thanks to you for your volunteer service in the community, and second, I want to tell you about the Friends of the Thousand Oaks Library. This is an all-volunteer group that I'm proud to be a part of in our community. I commend you all for your projects and undertaking on behalf of the seniors of the community. I'm most impressed with your leadership and engagement in the community, and as someone who directly benefits from your work, let me say thank you. National Volunteer Appreciation Month is the month that the Friends of the Thousand Oaks Library celebrate our own accomplishments and let people know what we do in the community. The mission of the Friends of the Thousand Oaks Library is to increase awareness of and raise funds for the library. We are the booster club for the Thousand Oaks Library. Our work promotes learning, literacy, and cultural awareness and for people of all ages in the community. We have over 300 Friends members and 61 very active volunteers during this COVID time. Here's the kind of work that we are doing. We operate an online used book sale. It's called Good Friends, Good Books. The items for sale are very low prices. Hardly anything is more than $4. This online store not only raises funds that enhance library services, it also provides us a way to recycle perfectly good usable books. Our volunteers also make used books available free of charge through the Friends Community Donations Project. In this project, Friends deliver free books to groups like Adelante Comunidad, the Park District, Safe Passages, Boys and Girls Clubs, Westminster Clinic, and other groups as well. We put smiles on faces. Our fundraising activities are used by the library to purchase online books and materials so necessary during our being at home time. And those materials provide learning and entertainment. Our financial supports does fund the friendly and history book clubs in town, and we also contribute about $10,000 a year for aquarium maintenance, and that's just part of the full cost of the aquarium maintenance. During non-COVID times, our cultural bus tours provide a way for seniors to visit museums and cultural events without having to drive. We are very proud of our work and our volunteers. and the work that we do to support and enhance Thousand Oaks Library services and programs. And we're always recruiting people to help us. I'd like to share our website URL with you, as well as the bookshop URL. And commissioners, thank you again. I hope you can see this. Does it come through?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. I want to personally recognize your service during this month and ask you to recruit for the Friends of the Thousand Oaks Library. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susan. I believe that that is the only public comment, so we'll move on to item 5 on our agenda, and is our guest speaker, Andrea Gallagher. Andrea Gallagher is president of Senior Concern. She's a certified senior advisor and founder of the Cards I've Been Dealt. Andrea served as past president of Life Planning Network, a national community of professionals who help others to successfully plan for and navigate the second half of life. She served as Life Transitions Chair of the International Conference on Positive Aging. Andrea is one of the editors and chapter contributor to the book Life Smart After 50, an expert's guide to life planning for uncertain times, and author of Other Side of 50, a column in the Acorn newspaper. Andrea is a national speaker on topics related to life planning, positive aging, and boomer transitions. I would also like to add our thank you to everyone who works and volunteers at Senior Concerns for the outstanding contribution that they made to support our community during the pandemic. So I really feel that that really needed to be said. You guys went above and beyond. So bravo and thank you. And we're looking forward to your presentation. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. Okay. Let's get going. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Council on Aging, for inviting me to speak today. Let me start by telling you that I love old movies. And actually, there's an old movie that I remember that I think does a wonderful job of describing life transitions. And that movie was Same Time Next Year. And it starred Alan Alda and Ellen Burstyn. And they played George and Doris, who met accidentally while having dinner at an inn. And they decided between the two of them that every year they were going to get together and spend some time together at that inn, even though both of them were happily married and had 6 children between them. They met every year for 26 years. And I remember watching in anticipation each year to see what had changed in their lives. During the time they spent with each other, they experienced births and deaths and all sorts of life transitions. And I remember each year watching them get older and watching the way that they had changed opinions and the way that they grew personally, the way that they, had children and raised them. And it was a fascinating movie because I thought it really did a great job of dealing with transitions in life. And these two individuals connecting with each other each year and talking about those life transitions. And hey, let's face it, life transitions affect all of us at any age, but those that affect us in the second half of life can take some real skill. So we're going to talk about some of those transitions today. Life transitions are periods in life involving lots of change to our lifestyle. And they could be significant life events like marriage or divorce, or having children, or finding out you can't have children, or retiring when you planned it, or being forced to retire, having it thrust on you. So whether we view these experiences as good or bad, they all have one thing in common, and that's change. And for many of us, life transitions are harder in the second half of life for a couple of reasons. First, because we may be kind of set in our ways. I can remember my mom, who was caring for my dad with advanced Parkinson's, saying she never wanted to have a paid caregiver come into her home. She was a private person and she had a sense of pride in caring for my dad all on her own. So that was a really hard transition for my mom when she could no longer do it alone. And second, we may have set expectations, and periodically life doesn't go the way we planned. I remember my dad being shocked when he got what they used to call the golden handshake at work when they were downsizing his company, and that he was forced into retirement at age 57. I can't even imagine being retired at 57 these days. Life transitions may run smoothly, but often people struggle to adjust to change, and many find these periods of life kind of stressful and distressing. So today we're going to talk about some of the changes in second half of life transitions and learn ways that we can make the best of them. So I'm going to talk about 4 different kinds of life transitions: anticipated transitions, transitions that happen to many of us, but we don't think about them, unanticipated transitions, and transitions that come on slowly and some that come on suddenly. So let's start with anticipated transitions. I think, all of us recognize, for those of us that have children, that grandparenthood is a great transition. I think I don't personally have children, but as I talk to my friends that now have grandchildren, they said it's better than having kids. You get to hand them back at the end of the day and spoil them. And so anyway, I think that's an anticipated transition that a lot of folks look forward to in the second half of life. And another one is retirement. I know that, quite often people are waiting for that day when they can retire and sit back and do some of the things that they had hoped to do, whether that's travel or, indulging in a hobby or doing volunteer work, for instance. And another anticipated transition, while we don't like to acknowledge it, but is looking older. I mean, we do know that as we get older, we may see some wrinkles and our hair may thin and our skin may thin. And, we sort of anticipate that happening. So those are anticipated transitions. The second are transitions that happen to many of us, but we don't consider them. So one of them quite often that happens is accepting services or needing to rely on others. It's not something, we're of a generation where we value our independence and our ability to be able to take care of ourselves. And so when we have to make that transition to rely on others, that's a difficult one, and we don't often anticipate that. Another one is adjusting to illness. Things come up in the second half of life. Could be diabetes or high blood pressure or heart disease. And those weren't things we necessarily thought that were going to enter our lives. Another one that happens that we don't think about is becoming a caregiver. I don't think any one of us, when we grew up, were thinking, oh yes, we're going to become a caregiver in our second half. Yet, a large percentage of people are becoming caregivers either for their spouse or a sibling or a neighbor. So that's an experience that we often see. Another might be needing to move to, needing assistance in the home or needing to move to an assisted living facility, for instance. And another is living to really old age. I know that I've talked to a couple of dear friends, my great-grandma being one of them, who lived to be over 100 years old, and she was in awe that she lived that old. And so I think that those are all transitions that happen, but we don't necessarily consider them. Another are unanticipated transitions. So that might be, for instance, that we lose our license, we lose our ability to drive, or certainly the pandemic is one that we hadn't anticipated, none of us did, or wildfires or earthquakes, most of us don't consider. We don't think about elder abuse or scams, but those are unanticipated transitions that sometimes happen to older adults. And social isolation, we've certainly seen that with the pandemic. Then we've got transitions that come slowly, where we can, adapt to them over time. And one might be a chronic illness that we end up having to learn to manage, or the fact that, we've got to be on a budget as we retire, because we've got to make sure our finances last for us. And then another is might be hearing or vision loss. So those are things that may come on slowly over time. And then there's sudden transitions, an Alzheimer's diagnosis, the death of a loved one, or an adult child relocating. So in a matter of moments, I've recounted for you over 20 life transitions that may or may not impact you in the second half of life, but they impact a lot of older adults. So before my senior concerns job, I ran workshops called Rethinking Your Future. And one of the exercises we did was a lifeline exercise like the one here. So let me explain this. We put a line in the middle of the paper and we marked off every 5 years. And then we marked off all the way to 100, as many people are living that long these days. Now on the left-hand side, we put ratings, 1 through 8. So above the line, those 1 through 8 are highlights that might happen in your life. And you can rate them based upon how big of a highlight it was. 1, not too big, up to 8 being a significant highlight in your life. Below the line, we also put a scale of 1 to 8. And this is where you recorded your lowlights and gave them a rating. So as you can see here, and I'm going to refer to my little paper here, this gentleman actually had a number of highlights in his life when he met his significant other, when he experienced some amazing personal growth, and then when he divorced is a low light. And one of the things, though, that I think is so fascinating once you map out your life like this is that you see that even after a significant low, so for instance, in this gentleman's lifeline at age 13, he lost his father. And even after that tremendous low, he had highlights. And so what does that prove to us? Well, it tells us that somehow everyone overcomes something sad and challenging in their life. And it gives us hope that we can overcome big challenges. And it really does speak to the resilience of the human spirit. So we talked about the type of life transitions that might impact us in the second half of life. And the fact that all of us in our past have overcome something challenging, but specifically, how do life transitions impact us? Well, for most of us, first of all, we have our feelings and we need to deal with those. It might be sad or anger or whatever, it might be euphoria if it's a great life transition. But then after we've had some time to think, we begin to re-examine ourselves and we begin to think differently. And then over time, we begin to act differently. So let's go back to this gentleman's timeline and see what we mean. You may have noticed that in this timeline, he was separated and divorced at the age of 46. And he rated that one of the lowest experiences of his life, similar to that of the death of his parents as his dad, which he experienced at age 13. A year after his divorce, though, he recorded one of the greatest highlights of his life when he experienced what he called a milestone in personal and spiritual growth. In this case, his divorce was hard because it shook his sense of identity. You know, as a married couple, we naturally define ourselves in part by our surroundings and by our situations. And when these change, it can be disorienting. It took some time for him to rebuild his sense of identity in his new role as a single person. But in that same time, he felt a great sense of personal achievement from where those changes had taken him. This is an example of working through a life transition to a level of personal success. And while we might not be able to do that with every life transition that challenges us, we can put some tools in our toolbox to better cope with life transitions as they come along. So let's look at those tools. How might we cope with change? If I had a live audience right now, I'd ask you to share an example of how you have overcome adversity in life. But I'm going to share with you some of the ones I hear quite often. I accepted that I needed to rely on others. Look, we're a society of self-reliant, independent people, and this is a challenging transition for many. I hear things like, I don't want to burden my kids, or I'd never ask for help. But once that acceptance is there, it makes that transition a lot easier. Another one I hear is, I learn new solutions to my problem. I often hear this with family caregivers when they join a support group, and they learn a lot of great new ideas. These next two I think of when I think of Christopher Reeve or Michael J. Fox. I refocused my mind on what I can do versus what I can't do. Or I began to help others who encountered the same challenge as me. And lastly, I often hear this with folks who have a challenging health diagnosis. I committed to taking care of myself. So just as we learned earlier in the Lifeline exercise, not every transition is a negative one, right? Many transitions in life are positive ones, but even still, they may cause us some stress. Adjusting to retirement or moving can all be somewhat stress-inducing, even though it might be a great experience. I have one additional exercise I do with a Lifeline. Oftentimes, I'm working with folks in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and I ask them in their Lifeline to take a different color pen. So first of all, they might stop their Lifeline at 70 or 80, and I ask them to take it all the way to 110. And then I ask them to plot the things on their Lifeline that they think are going to happen to them in that time frame. And of course, many people immediately go to the negatives. I have a healthcare crisis, or I can't drive anymore. But there are gifts to longer life too. For instance, enjoying great grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren, deepening our relationship with our spouses and siblings and friends, witnessing the advancement of treatments for your disease. I just think of all the advancements that we had with diabetes treatment over the last 50 years. And, now people can, wear a little device on their arm to give themselves insulin without pricking their fingers every day. Helping others and giving back and finding purpose are all wonderful transitions that can happen in the second half of life. And then having more chances to improve and enjoy and engage. The outcome of this part of the exercise is to get folks to rethink their future. Rather than life transitions being a surprise, what might we anticipate and what would we do about it? This year will be the 10th anniversary of a book I edited and helped co-write with 33 experts in the field of aging called Live Smart After 50. These experts included life coaches and financial planners and elder law attorneys and retirement specialists, career coaches, psychologists, cognitive fitness experts, all in the field of aging. And in synthesizing their collective wisdom, we came up with 4 ways we discovered to deal with life transitions in a positive way in the second half of life. First, learn to deal with change. I talked earlier about all the change that's occurred over our lifetime. All change, whether it's good or bad, involves loss, uncertainty, and control. So for example, even in retirement, which most of the time is a good thing, it can still cause a feeling of loss as we no longer are a contributing member of the workforce. It has a level of uncertainty as we think about what our future holds. And of course, we may have to give up some control or at least give up a certain status or salary or social network. So our psychological transition often occurs a lot more slowly than our situation does. So what do I mean by that? Well, let me give you an example. Early on in the pandemic here at Senior Concerns, we pivoted really quickly. We shut down our adult day program. We moved from delivering over 400 meals a week with Meals on Wheels to over 800 a week to 4,000. We started a free food pantry. We did all these things. And sadly, I had to lay off about half of the Senior Concerned staff. And while I thought I was dealing with all of this, as well as I could, I noticed my hair was falling out. And actually, it fell out quite significantly. And it really was a reaction to my own personal stress. So when I say our psychological transition occurs more slowly, my body knew before my mind knew that I was dealing with a pretty significant life transition. So if there's one skill you can hone as you get older, it's that of resilience. So to be resilient requires flexibility and balance with your life as you deal through stressful situations. So being flexible as new situations arise and striking a balance in what you do with your time, in saving too much or enjoying yourself, about living for today versus thinking about the future. I think the new word for it in the pandemic is pivot. The second one, be self-aware. Talk about, so one of the things that I found in these workshops, one of the other things we did is a values exercise. And the one that sticks out to me most was a group of 80-year-olds, an 80-year-old church group. And so we had this deck of cards, and on each card was a value. You can see some of those cards there. A value might be achievement or enjoyment or family. And so what we had folks do is separate the cards into two piles. The values that were important to them went into one pile, and the values that were less important went into the other pile. Then we had them take the important pile, and we had them pick their top 10, which is really hard because all those values were things that you thought were important, but now you've got to whittle it down to 10. And then we had them whittle it down to 5 and then rank them. And what is amazing is that the moment that they recognized their key values, it became powerful for them. What's interesting is, we go through a lot of schooling when we're younger, but most of us don't know what our values are. But our values drive our choices and the decisions we make and how we interact with others. So it's interesting about values, though. They can be inherited. I always say that my parents, who were, had a very strong sense of what was right and wrong, I learned that from them. Our values can reflect the place we live, the town, the state, the country. Our values are often generational. Think of the difference between the silent generation and the baby boom generation, or the millennials for that matter. Why is it important to know our values? Well, it helps us to make better choices for ourselves. Our values determine our decisions and help guide our lives. And they help us find compatible people and places and things to support us and comfort us. I'll give you an example. I have a friend who worked for Amgen for a long time and then went off to work in the pharmacy world for doggy medicine. And she had, her mom came to live in the area as she turned probably, I want to say 75, her mom lived into her late 90s. And at one point, her mom moved into an assisted living facility. And while Kathy didn't have hands-on care for her mom, she did, do a lot of stuff for her mom, helping her with her meds and doctor's appointments and clothes washing and you name it. And what happened is between Kathy's full-time job and caring for her mom, she didn't do the one thing that was her first and most important value, and that was to have fun. And it caused her to be depressed and sad and a little bit angry. So knowing your values can help lead to a life of authenticity, and it allows us to gravitate to things in our life that make our hearts sing. So in case you were wondering, I will share with you my top 3 values: wisdom, family, and achievement. So let me tell you a little story of how I got into the seniors world, and I think it will help explain why I've become a student of life transitions and life planning. So on the left are Fred and Hildy. They were my neighbors. My husband and I moved into a neighborhood where we were at the end of a small cul-de-sac, and Fred and Hildy lived about 3 houses down. And my husband and I had a come meet your neighbors party. So Fred and Hildy came in. Fred was pushing Hildy, who was in a wheelchair, and they were a delightful couple. And not long thereafter, Hildy called and said she was having Fred's, I think it was probably 80th birthday, and would we like to join them? And I said to my husband, well, this be nice. We'll meet the kids and the grandkids. And so the dinner was at North Ranch Country Club, and we showed up, and it was Frederick and Hildy, one other 80-year-old couple, and my husband, Peter, and I. And then we realized when we started talking to them more that they had no children, they had no relatives nearby. And so what began is, helping out, can I pick you up something at the grocery store? Over time, led to caring for Fred and Hildy through his stroke and her dementia diagnosis. And, it's interesting because Fred was Hildy's caregiver. She had macular degeneration, so she was legally blind, and she had arthritis, so she was in the wheelchair. But he really hadn't thought about the probabilities. What happened when he could no longer care for her? What happened when he was no longer able to drive? And that's why I think estate planning attorneys are worth their weight in gold, because they ask you to articulate your wishes should any of these probabilities happen. But there's also the possibilities in the second half of life. And I show you that book there, Write, Open, Act, because I think it explains nicely the importance of life planning. The author was an executive at Nike, and one day he and his wife pulled out a large sheet of butcher paper, put it on the dining room table, and invented a process they call intentional life planning. And it began with a conversation about where they wanted to live and what they wanted to do with their life. And it led for them to create a plan that delivered to them the promise that they were looking for. So one of the others is to succeed through life transitions. I love this African proverb: smooth seas do not make skillful sailors. In other words, rough seas or tough times challenge us and make us more skillful. I think there's also a quote that says that you don't learn anything from the good stuff, you learn from the challenges in your life. So there are many possibilities for life in our later years. And now I'm talking about dealing with the probabilities, the loss of a loved one, or chronic illness, or having to give up control. I often also say that I'm so proud of my mom and dad for being the kind of people that were willing to look at a situation and to make a logical decision, not an emotional one. My mom and dad, we grew up in New Hampshire. My mom and dad, when my dad retired at 57, they retired to Cape Cod. They loved it there. As a matter of fact, it's where they went on their honeymoon, if you can imagine. So anyway, they spent 25 years living in Cape Cod and loved it. But during that time, my dad had a Parkinson's diagnosis. And now we fast forward 25 years, and it was getting pretty difficult for my mom to take care of my dad all by herself. And there were three of us girls, and they didn't live close to any of them. The closest was about 3 hours away, and then I was, 6 hours away by airplane. So we sat down and we talked about all of the options for where they could live and get some help. And, the options were to each one of us girls said we'd absolutely be happy to take my mom and dad and have them live with us. But we also talked about an assisted living facility. We talked about, a age 55 plus community. We talked about all sorts of options. And my mom and dad made the call that they would move up to New Hampshire, back to where we grew up, where my sister lived. And my sister, her husband, and my sister's two children and their spouses all lived in that area. And then my mother had built-in help to help with my dad. And it was a wonderful transition because my mother wasn't no longer, isolated in the house with my dad. She had lots of help and lots of socialization, both she and my dad. So it was just a great decision. So most of us use a set of skills to overcome adversity. So for me, I'm the kind of person that'll study up and amp up and refocus. And it's worked for me when I had a major illness as a child that impacted me going to school. As it turned out, I worked so hard at studying up and amping up that I got a Scholastic Award for the highest GPA in in my grade school when I was being homeschooled at the time because I was sick. And it worked for me when suddenly Peter and I became family caregivers for Fred and Hildy. That's how I got to know senior concerns, studying up on all the things I needed to know about caring for an aging loved one. So it's what I do when adversity strikes. You may have other skills that you call upon. Remember I talked about resilience, and that's a skill, but there are others that can help through life transitions, like self-control or looking at the big picture and learning to live with uncertainty. I think we've all learned that lesson the hard way through this pandemic. We've had we still have a bunch of living to do. And, there will be uncertainty and it won't be without stress, but there's lots of things that we can do to make sure that we can enjoy the second half. So what's one takeaway message that we all should remember about getting older and about our own longevity? It's really about the choices we make along the way. Each and every choice impacts our trajectory. So the people who are best at life transitions are those that build a bridge to the outcome they're looking for. Like Michael J. Fox going from actor to advocate. Or Julia Child, who was a CIA intelligence officer, but she moved to Paris with her husband at the age of 36. She didn't know the language. She was lonely. And it was there that she had, faced an environmental and social challenge. And she decided to pick up cooking. And look what happened there. Or Walt Disney, who was fired from his job drawing commercial illustrations for advertising. And it was only after this that he became interested in animation. And some years later, of course, the Walt Disney Empire was born. So perhaps the best message is this. It's okay to talk about life expectancy, and it's even better to plan for it. As they say, to build your bridge to your destination always takes a plan. I want to thank you for your time today. And upon closing, I want to introduce you to my role model for dealing with life transitions, and that's my mom, Barbara. Whether it was her cancer diagnosis or caring for her husband with Parkinson's for 25 years until his death, or having to move from her beloved retirement home in Cape Cod to being near a daughter who could help, or agreeing to the one thing she said she would never have, and that was a paid caregiver in her home. She finds the things that she can do to bring happiness, which are cooking, seeing her great grandbaby. She plans for her future by agreeing to work with an investment advisor and outlining her wishes with her estate planning attorney. She's taught me that even with many challenges in later life, we can still find ways to live our best life. Thanks again to the Thousand Oaks Council on Aging for inviting me to speak today.
Thank you so much, Andrea. That was wonderful. So I'm certain that we have some questions for you, and I'd like to open it up to anyone who would like to ask any questions. So if you guys want to unmute yourself, just raise your hand and I'll go ahead and call on you. Yes, Commissioner Burt.
Andrea, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Have you ever heard of this game called the Go Wish game?
Yes, yes.
And it's a really wonderful, wonderful game. I've played it with my wife, and given it out to friends, but you decide what's important together and gives you an easy, entertaining way to think and talk about what's important to you if you do become seriously ill. So it's a really wonderful game, and I certainly recommend it.
Yes, it's an excellent tool. And it spurs on the conversation of end of life. So it's an important conversation to have.
Thank you, Commissioner Burt. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Posta.
Yes, I noticed you quoted Michael J. Fox a couple of times. And the first one, I think you'd said about what he had said, I refocused my mind on what I can do and what I can't do. And what it reminded me of was the Serenity Prayer, which essentially says that. But the most important part he didn't finish. He said, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yes,
There lies the rub, doesn't it?
yes.
What can I change and what can I change? How can I change my daughter's cooking or raising kids, and how can't I? How should I stay quiet? The wisdom to know the difference, right? Very great talk. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Bill, Commissioner. You'll need to unmute. I think that's the
Here I am.
latest. There you go, Dr. Bill. Thank you.
Yes. Andrea, that was terrific. I mean, that opened so many doors in my mind about what's happening as we get into these later stages of life, of which I'm joining a large group. But one of the things that I was wondering about is there anything, I mean, you have a wonderful organization, but is there anything that the city of Thousand Oaks or our council could do to complement what you're doing, that we could enhance in any way some of the things that you have on your plate? Because I'm sure you don't have enough resources.
Yes, great question. So first of all, I think that there's been a wonderful symbiotic relationship between the city of Thousand Oaks and Senior Concerns. Actually, the building that we're in today, the land was gifted by the city to Senior Concerns over, I don't even know, back before 1975, so it's been quite a while. You know, there's certainly volunteers is one place that we could work together. Identifying, you know, we were very lucky during the pandemic because we lost a lot of our volunteers early on because they were older adults and they wanted to shelter in place. But we still needed people to deliver meals and that sort of, you know, and to help us, you know, deliver free pantry food. And so getting that word out there was really important. And we still to this day need, you know, we continue to grow. We're not only doing Meals on Wheels, but we're executing the Governor's Great Plates program in the city of Thousand Oaks and Newbury Park with Country Harvest Restaurant and Brent's Deli. So we need, you know, with over the 4,000 meals every week that we're delivering, volunteering, people to volunteer is great. And you can go right to our website at seniorconcerns.org and under the volunteer tab and apply right online there. So that's one thing. And I think the other is to bring out topics of importance to seniors in the community. I think we both can do a great job of that. There are just so many pieces of information that people are unaware of. We needed a notary here at Senior Concerns, and so I had a notary come over here, and I was talking to her about something, and she has a husband who's ill, and there's a file of life. I don't know how many of you know, and I don't even think I have one right here at my fingertips, but a file of life is the little thing that you fill out, which has your doctor on it and your doctors and your medical information, the medications you might be taking. And it's all in a little red folder, and you can either put it on your refrigerator or next to your bedside table. And that's where a first responder will go if something were to happen to you in your home. They would go there to find that medical information. And even getting the message out about that. And of course, we have them free at Senior Concerns. Any senior can come by and pick one up, and we can do no contact pickup. We'll leave it in the lobby for you. But those kind of things, I just think information is key, and there's so much that can be learned out there. So I think both of our organizations can work together on that.
Great question, Dr. Bill. Anyone else?
I have another.
Yes, Dr. Bill.
So a question that also comes to my mind is with respect to the various services you have. Do you in any way take a metric to find out which ones are your strongest ones and which ones are your weakest ones, so you know how to allocate your resources?
Yeah, we definitely do. And in part because many of our programs are funded by grants. And so we have to establish metrics up front that we're tracking along the way. Probably our most valued programs that we have are two. The first one is our adult day program, which of course we had to stop back in March of last year. And we probably won't be up and running again, I'm going to say fall of this year. So, and that's where we had a day program where folks with cognitive impairment could come to our program during the day. It allowed them socialization and activities and a great nutrition, and it allowed the family caregiver an ability to have some respite themselves. That program has seen, for instance, we know that enrolling an individual in that program prevents placement for up to 3 years. So that means that that individual is still living in the community, in their home, with their family members, and are not in an institution or in a other facility. Our other program, Meals on Wheels, we actually pre-pandemic had for all of our meal recipients, we do a home visit and we do a mini nutritional assessment. And that assessment helps to understand, is that individual malnourished? Are they close to malnourishment? What is their status from a nutrition standpoint? It also affords us the opportunity to look at their home environment and see if there are other resources that we can provide to them. But for instance, we know that folks that are on Meals on Wheels, their health increases, their trips to the emergency room decrease. And part of that is a function of not only the great nutrition, but it's the volunteer checking in on them every day also. So we have some specific metrics, and in particular, those two programs are our strongest in terms of the value for what we do for the senior.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right. You do so much for the community. Thank you again. Are there any other questions? Well, I have a question. It has to do more with transition and where I'm at, because I find that in my peer group, which is more like maybe from 62 to 70, we're kind of caught in between taking care of older parents that are still alive because we're living longer and are healthier, and having either college age children or children that are getting married and are trying to make their own transition. And I find that for me, the difficult that I'm bombarded kind of with making changes and feeling comfortable with that, allowing my son to make just adult decisions on his own and feeling like it's okay. And then also trying to walk that line of allowing my mother, who has been very, very independent all her life, trying to accept that she needs help, but she, how do you talk to someone who has been independent all their life, and you're worried that they're going to get in the car, So it's kind of a string. And then I'm going through my own transition on my own as someone who's retired and is trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with the next couple of years, the next, 20, 30 years of my life. So I find that this period of my life is probably, I don't want to say the most challenging, but probably where I'm having to make more, juggle more with my family, and then not knowing where do I kind of fit into all of that. So I don't know if you have any words of wisdom for someone that's kind of going through something like that.
Yeah. So the one thing I'd say is we call that the sandwich generation, right?
Yes.
So you're sandwiched in between. You've got, your mom and your kids that you're helping with. A couple of things. First of all, this happens way more with women than with men, that they become the inside of the sandwich. And part that is a function of, we've been the nurturers, right, for our entire lives, generally speaking. And so, and oftentimes it's the daughter that is tasked with the responsibility of caring for an aging loved one for their parent. With regards to your mom, the one thing I'd say is that having a conversation around what are the most important things to her as she gets older can really help frame the conversation. If getting together with her friends, for instance, is the most important thing, then enabling that in a way that is safe, that maybe she might be able to accept some change, but that gets her to that outcome of what's most important to her, is an interesting way to frame it. And sometimes that works. But I would also tell you that we have a group of social workers here at Senior Concerns, our case managers and care managers, that are here via phone call or Zoom to answer lots of questions like that, because we frankly get, a lot of folks that are feeling overwhelmed. And I would also tell you that our support groups are also a great way to learn from others, things that they've done that have worked with their family situations.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny situation to be in, because on the one hand, you want to give more support to your parent. And on the other hand, I'm trying to let go of my son a little bit and let him become an adult and make his own mistakes and feel comfortable with that. So it's definitely been a challenging couple of years. So I want to give one more opportunity to see if anybody else had any questions for Andrea before we move on. So I don't see that there's any more questions. Thank you, Andrea, on behalf of everyone here, our community. Really, I don't know what we would have done during the pandemic, and what you have your contribution. There's just nothing that I can say. But thank you so much for everything that you do. So thank you.
Thank you, all of you, very much. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Bravo. So with that, I'm going to go on to item 6. And at this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Belding to announce the liaison and agency reports.
Thank you, Chair Guerra. Item 6 is liaison and agency reports. So besides advising City Council on items that are related to seniors in the community, the Commission also serves as liaison to a number and various partner groups. I will call on each commissioner to provide updates. Item A is the Global Adult Community Center. And Commissioner Posta is our liaison to the Global Center Commission. And Commissioner Posta, do you have some info for us today? I think you want to unmute.
I believe Thelma was supposed to do this, wasn't she? I don't have an update, quite frankly.
Okay, well, I don't see an extra person added to the dais right here.
Perhaps Stephanie,
Yes.
Mike McAdam
Oh, thank
is
you.
here from the Global Center.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mike. I was not made aware that you were going to be the one doing that today. So please take it away, Mike McAdam.
Thank you. Normally Patty would be here, but she's on vacation playing with her grandbaby. So I get to sit in, and what a great presentation. Thank you for having her on, because I took copious notes myself, because I too am stuck between children getting out of college and my mom is in her 80s. So I'm right there in between all of that myself. So thank you for having Andrea on today, because it was very eye-opening for me as well. So some of the things that we've got going on here at Global Center, as you know, we are a county vaccination site. I was just talking to one of the supervisors this morning. They just passed over 20,000 vaccinations that they have given to people. They're doing roughly 5,000 or 500 appointments per day here. So they are getting them out there as quickly as they can. Their current permit extends through the end of June at this point, with the possibility to extend it if they need to. But they're hoping that with all the pharmacies and other sites being opened up, that hopefully by the end of June, everybody will be shot free and ready to go. So And then with the governor's announcement this morning, we're hoping that that will be the case too, so we can kind of get back to some people back in the building and some more fun things instead of just vaccines here. So this morning we transitioned from appointments only into a drop-in tax prep program, but I think your CSVP or rep might talk a little bit more about that. So they started doing some walk-in tax preparations in our building, safely distanced and everything. A couple of programs we have coming up. We were approached by a high school student recently, and we now have a program called Old School Meets High School. And it's they're doing a pilot program with just 5 students and 5 seniors right now, but it's basically for people who have been shut in and not able to get out since all this started. And it's kind of like a pen pal program on Zoom, where they just want to get together and share life stories of the old school versus the high school, and what was it like when you were in school and what was it like in high school now. And it's something that we've had in our newsletter for like 2 months now, and we've got enough people signed up, so we're going to get that started coming up. And I'm pretty excited about it because if they're successful with it and they have a positive response, we're going to grow it even bigger. So getting the high school kids involved and excited about sharing their stories and learning from previous generations is something that I think they can learn a lot from, and the seniors will have a lot of fun sharing their stories as well, because people just want to share what they've got going on. A couple other things we've got coming up. We have a seminar on the 22nd of this month called Best Places to Retire in 2021. And then, of course, on May 8th, we have our Mother's Day tea. That'll be on our back patio. We have tables set up on our back patio where we can do it safely distanced. And that'll actually be an in-person program where they can come and families can set up. It's an intergenerational thing. The last time we did this, we had actually 4 generations in one family. So from children all the way up to great grandparents. So it's a lot of fun. It's kind of fun. They come get all their Sunday hats on and come out and have tea party. So it's really a blast. So those are some of the great things we've got coming up. Any questions?
Oh, yes, Commissioner Janelle.
First, a personal hello to Mike, because we grew up across the street from each other and our moms were very good friends. But I did have a question about the shots at Global, because I became eligible, and although I think my pharmacy is going to be doing it, I didn't see the Global Center on the VC sites, Vaccine Finder or anything. Is there something separate to go to Global? Because I know my husband got it there.
So they started with the Ventura County Recovers website in order to get appointments here, and they have since transitioned to the statewide My Turn website. And they're kind of going back and forth, because if you got a first shot somewhere else, you still have to go through the Ventura County site to get an appointment here. If you haven't had any shots, then you can go through the My Turn site to get an appointment here, and it does first and second dose at the same time when you sign up.
I just didn't see the Global listed, so maybe
because they only have 500 shots per day, they are and a lot of their other sites have them in the thousands of shots per day. They're very limited on doses here, as they call it limited, but just because the numbers per day. So they are split between the My Turn and the Ventura County site. And so they only release a certain amount of appointments per day. And because everybody and their mother wants to come here instead of drive somewhere else in the county to get it, they go like smoke in a high wind. So as soon as they release them, they get snapped up and they're gone. And with the Ventura County site, as soon as those appointments are full, Global disappears from the website. So it's not even listed there anymore.
That's probably what's happening. I mean, I'm trying, but I can't go very far. It's tax season, and so I'm looking to go, as close as possible. I can't drive anywhere, but thank you. And nice to see you.
Likewise.
Is there anyone else that has a question for Mike today? Well, Mike, I just want to say best use of the phrase "everyone and their mother" wanting to come that I've ever heard. And thank you so much for your update today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Item B is our Conejo Senior Volunteer Program. And the coordinator for that for us is Thelma Williams. Commissioner Williams, do you have some great news for us?
Yes, I do. It's good to see you all. Julie is so busy, so she sent me a report again this time for me to report to you and sends her regards, of course. And the big one, as Mike mentioned, is the free income tax preparation. It's going to be extended through May 14th, 2021. I think you probably all know that our tax season was extended. And we're transitioning from our virtual tax program to our in-person program. We'll be open at the Global Autumn Center west end of the building, closest to the teen center, on Wednesday, April 7th to Friday, May 14th, and this is the hard part, a first come, first served basis, no appointments. Hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 9 to 3. And in dark print, it says space is very limited. I know that it has been. A lot of the other places around have not been open at all this year. So a lot of people have come to Thousand Oaks for help. And it's just burgeoning. So if you need help, they may or may not be able to help you with your taxes. And the other thing that she'd like to remind you about is the volunteer for the Canal Free Clinic. It's looking for volunteers in these positions: a receptionist for medical and legal services, a retired RM, MA, EMT to take vitals and room patients in small limited patient setting. The hours vary for all these things. A retired dental assistant, dental hygiene, or people who have previous dental office experience, or the Canal Free Clinic follows all state and local COVID protection guidelines. Front doors are locked and clients and patients are seen by appointment only. For more information, email TSEELEY, tseeley@canalfreeclinic.org. You can download application on their website at the Canal, www.canalfreeclinic.org, or contact Teresa. She's the executive director, and the phone number is 805-551-5266. And if you want to find out about other opportunities for volunteer, contact Julie at Canal Senior Volunteer Program. They do a wonderful job. So we're proud that we can be involved with them in this. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. I know that'll be great for people. You know, there are so many volunteers in our community. I know somebody is probably just excited to hear that news, and we'll jump on that. Item C is the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging. Commissioner Posta is also our representative to the VCAAA. Commissioner Posta, are you speaking on that today?
Yes, I think you got the right person this time. Let's hope. Anyway, a year ago, the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging distributed about 5 million free meals to the needy. This past year, it distributed over 60 million, a 12-fold increase. That's tremendous. What do you think? On the vaccine front, the VCAAA provided over 50,000 rides to county residents to get the vaccine when they had no other way of getting there. Thanks because of the so many volunteers that we had. Again, not too shabby. So what's new? Plenty. Oh, where is it, John? Where is it, John? We have the Ventura County Agency on Aging has an Eat Smart, Live Strong program. Enjoy fun, lively activities with others during this 4-week online course designed for people 60 and older. Participants will discuss easy ways to make smart food choices and exercise more care in their eating. Classes are taught by a registered dietitian and are free to participants. The April 6th date is already gone, but the 3 weeks thereafter are still open. Classes are held at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Classes are standalone, but participants are encouraged to join the full 4 weeks, 3 weeks now. To register, call 805-477-7353 or email crystal.greenlaw@ventura.org. Have you, something else we got too here. Next slide, please. Do we have a next slide there, Francine? On the pearls? I guess we got a little hang up here. We don't have the next one? Well, I'll have to talk about, have you
Yeah,
lost?
It should
That's
be
it.
up to,
I'm sorry,
John?
that's it. Yes. Have you lost interest in day-to-day activities? Have you been feeling sad or lonely? If you're 60 or older and answered yes to either of these questions, and I'm sure many of you have, there is help available. The Ventura County Behavioral Health and the VC AAA have a partnership that offers a no-cost, high-quality care and community-based program called Pearls. Often the losses we endure as we age and the changes in physical health, social structure, and even and maybe most importantly, our independence can lead to an awful feeling of loneliness, sadness, frustration, irritability, anxiousness, and even thoughts of suicide. The Pearls program teaches skills to manage as best we can these feelings, and at the same time, improve the quality of life. To learn more about Pearls, please do visit www.vcAAA.org or call 805-477-7300. Your inquiries can also be sent by email to lois.vcAAA@ventura.org. All these programs are free and really can help you. So please do check them out. Thank you.
Thank you, John, very much. I will send the meeting back to Chair Guerra.
Thank you, Commissioner Belding. Yes, those programs are free, which is the best price. And I know that the Pearls program, what a wonderful opportunity to, especially during the pandemic when we've all have felt so isolated and out of control. So great program to take advantage of. So moving on to item 7 on our agenda is commission reports. And I'm going to call upon Commissioner Williams again. If she would like to report on Senior of the Year. And you will need to unmute.
I was being so efficient. So I was going to say maybe Francine also has something to offer on this too, but we have some very, very competent people who have been suggested as the Senior of the Year. And we're going to be meeting later today to talk about these people. Each one of them has been a wonderful volunteer. So it's exciting to have these offered as the person that we're going to be choosing as the Senior of the Year, which will happen in June. And that's really all I have to say about it at this time. But I believe that
the deadline already passed. Is that
the
right?
deadline is passed, and these are the people that have been offered as somebody that will maybe qualify for this program. And as far as I'm concerned, all of them would qualify, but we have to pick one, and the others will also be honored, but not quite in the same way. So the big thing is, how are we going to honor them this year when we can't have a meeting? And that's going to be something that Francine is pulling her hair out about, I'm sure, but we'll work it out.
well, we can't wait to hear. And like you said, all of them are winners. and do so much for our community. So thank you, Commissioner Williams. So item 8 on our agenda is commissioner comments. This is a portion of our meeting where commissioners can provide announcements in which no action or discussion by the commission will be taken. At this time, are there any commissioner comments? Yes, Commissioner Belding.
I just wanted to give a little quick report to you on the Senior Adult Master Plan survey. And we had over 500 responses to our survey, which during this pandemic time is really amazing. And I wanted to thank all the council members for their efforts. And I wanted to thank all the community members, the residents who took the time and the effort to respond. It will make a huge difference for their lives and ours over the next decade or so. And I wanted to give a big shout out to Tony Gitt, who was on our council last year, a couple years before, and he really got the ball rolling on this. So thank you for getting us all involved in this. And we look forward to now analyzing the results and getting back to you on that.
Yes, Commissioner Lowndes.
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to let everyone know, because we've put the advertisement out on our social media pages, that, again, to repeat, we've got some vacancies coming up for the Council on Aging. And being probably one of the newer members to the council, I just want to let anyone who's considering putting in an application that it would be well worth your time and a most rewarding experience. You will get to work with a tremendous group of folks whose primary focus are the maturing community here in Thousand Oaks, and would advocate highly for folks to put in their application.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we're a fun group too. Anyone else with commissioner comments? Okay. So before I adjourn this meeting, I have a few reminders, and let me go ahead and share the screen. So let me start with, we've been talking, the COVID-19 vaccination registration. Here is the website, which is www.venturacountyrecovers.org, or you can call 805-477-7161. If you need a ride, as John has said, you can call VC AAA at 805-477-7300 to schedule that. I've already gotten my first shot, so don't delay. Go out there and get your shot. If you need any resources or referrals for either yourself or your parent or a family member, we have 2 organizations that we are in partnership with. The first one is, we've mentioned before, Ventura County Area Agency on Aging. You can also go to their website if you prefer to do that, and they have resources online or their phone number here. If you want to call them directly, their call center is open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. And they can not only tell you about what's available, but maybe also educate you on what other types of resources are available without you even knowing about it. Also, 211 Ventura County for any other non-senior related resource that you might need. You can go to their website and access it through their website, or you can call. It's a very simple number to remember, 211. That's it, just like 411, 211, and they're available 24/7. Or if you want to use your phone and want to text it, you would text 898-211 and then just enter in your zip code and someone will respond to you. Now, if you would like to call us and just drop us a line or let us know how we're doing or what we should be doing, call us at 805-381-7362, or we would love to hear from you. You can email us at councilonaaging@toaks.org. You can reach us at our website, www.toaks.org. toaks.org/seniors. And I believe this is where the application is that Patty, Commissioner Lowndes was discussing. If you want to join our fun-filled group, please fill out an application at this website. To follow us, because you just can't get enough, follow us on social media. So you can follow us or like us at Thousand Oaks Council on Aging, and we can be found on Facebook and Twitter. So with that, there being no further business to come before the commission, the Council on Aging meeting is adjourned to our next regular meeting. See you next month. Thank you.